And then we continue with more business today. Kenya's tense economic climate, compounded by political unrest, inflation, and the weak shilling, plus supply chain challenges, have influenced capital flight in the country's financial markets. The fear factor, though, has in turn crossed borders to Kampala as Ugandan banks switch their long-term position on the Kenyan shilling. The managed flow of Nairobi shilling, the Eurobond distress, among other factors, seem to be a blessing in disguise for Uganda's investment portfolio. Now in this report, Ronan Ahawa gives you more of the understanding of the Kenyan shilling crumbling.
The Kenyan shilling has been backpedaling since mid-2021 when it stood at 106.54 as the combination of weak inflows and strong dollar demand. Global inflation, supply chain, bottlenecks and political unrest among major factors. As Nairobi's economy struggles, there is growing tension over capital flight and Uganda seems to be smiling in the dark. According to banking experts, Kenya's fragile shilling to dollar context, currently at 141 for $1 has in-depth undercuttings to regional financial markets and economic stability.
I have heard and read in the media things around bankruptcy, things around Kenya shilling. I think there's been a big misrepresentation of what is happening in Kenya. What is happening is the Kenya shilling is losing value against the dollar. And this is something that's been happening consistently over the last few months. It's not because there's a shortage of Kenya shillings or people going bankrupt. It is simply the currency is weakening against the dollar. So the question we must ask, why is the currency weakening against the dollar? From my perspective, there are two main issues as to why. One, the Kenya shilling is a managed float. It is not a free-floating currency like the Uganda shilling, meaning that the central bank directly or indirectly is keeping the shilling trading at a particular level instead of letting the market determine where the shilling should be trading.
Amidst the stress in Nairobi, there is a standing question of how deep regional impact could be and whether there is cake big enough for Uganda to take on. Ugandan traders that have capacity to export their produce with a value addition backing have been motivated to utilize this window since it's a temporary jackpot.
If we had capacity to now process the Ugandan goods and export them with value addition, this would be the right time. Other than, because now the Kenyans are reluctant to buy because the shilling has depreciated and therefore it's more expensive to trade. However, for us, on the other side, it's cheaper to trade in Kenya because we shall require less money to buy the same volume of goods than yesterday. And this is good for the country if at all the Ugandan traders can utilize that and take advantage of this. However, they should also know that this is a temporary situation. Whoever wants to benefit out of this temporary situation may end up losing in the long run. Those ones who may come in to speculate in the money economy between Uganda and Kenya through the exchange rates, you may have a lot to lose because the market forces might stabilize the shilling once again.
If you're doing trade with Kenya, it should be better for you because as the Kenya shilling weakens, it means the Uganda shilling is stronger, which means if you're importing goods from Kenya, they become cheaper. If you're buying Kenya shillings, they're actually cheaper. So as the Kenya currency weakens, assuming you're doing business with Kenya, it means that every Uganda shilling you exchange for Kenya shilling, you're getting more value. Kenyan company operating in Uganda will not have a problem. Probably will be a Kenyan company because of the reduced availability of dollars. Repatriating money outside of Kenya becomes difficult. But getting money in, buying Kenya shillings from Uganda shillings is easier. It's actually cheaper now. What is the real story in Kenya is the lack of availability of dollars. Meaning that if you want to repatriate your money outside of Kenya, it becomes difficult because of the shortage of dollars.
Debt burden persists for many African states, Kenya inclusive. In this year's first quarter, a few big international debts that had drained its foreign reserves were cleared and the balance was insufficient to settle future obligations or safeguard its currency against external shocks. In fact, $2 billion Eurobond is a critical and questionable reality. Observers question respective governments to monitor monetary policies and financial markets closely.
That's why the Kenya shilling is weakening. It's because there are some concerns in regards to functioning of that particular economy. There are many people that believe the economy is not doing well because of the debt. Kenya's debt is increasingly becoming unmanageable. In 2024, $2 billion maturing in euro bonds. This is instruments that issue at the borrowed international market. So there are fears that Kenya currently is not in a position to repay those euro bonds.
Not have adequate foreign exchange reserves. It's difficult for you to sustain your currency strength. If there is a demand for your local currency and you do not have sufficient reserves, then you are going to have the shilling lose value. Now, these instances, when they happen to our key trade partners like Kenya, it has a lot of volumes to speak to us. Because if the Kenyan shilling loses value, then it means it's going to affect some of the Ugandan exporters. And Kenya is our big trading partner. But also you begin to say, where is the situation for Uganda itself? Are we having sufficient reserves, or are we going to find ourselves in the same space? So a lot of macroeconomics is also going to be very, very critical for what is happening at the lower level.
Bank runs and panic sales are probable during economic tension. Such a move from Ugandan banks and traders, for instance, would lead to a significant devaluation of Kenyan shilling against the Ugandan shilling, and shortage of the Kenyan shilling observed in the local forex business depends the exchange rate instability.
First, try to ensure that they protect the interests of their clientele and also mainly protect some of their investment portfolios. Now, if you're having the Ugandan banks withdraw heavily from the Kenyan market because of the fact that it is heavily depreciating because of the fears that they are having concerning the limited cash reserves of the Kenyan shilling, I feel like they're trying to protect their interests. So if you're having such a thing, it mainly goes back to the Kenyan government in trying to work hand in hand with the Central Bank of Kenya in trying to protect and give the confidence back to some of these international banks, like the Ugandan banks that are withholding back from the Kenyan market.
Mr. Okwenje Benon gives confidence to Ugandans that with a free-floating local shilling, unlike Nairobi's currency, there is advantage for local trade and investment.
Central banks, thank goodness, is doing the right thing. Our currency is free-floating. It means that the market determines the level of the currency. Bank of Uganda does not determine or dictate the rate of exchange rate. They let the market determine that. And as long as you let the market determine where the currency is, then you'll be able to buy and sell dollars. You'll be able to expatriate money out. You know, we have the good thing about Uganda and why foreign investors love Uganda. We have a liberalized capital account. We have a free floating exchange rate, meaning the market determines the level of the exchange rate. As long as we continue to do that, we'll be absolutely fine. And in fact, we'll actually attract more foreign investment into our economy.
While Tanzania is also witnessing economic challenges, Kenya seems severe as East Africa struggles with shrinking foreign reserves. Locally, import cover stands at $3.6 billion, about 3.5 months, a slight improvement from January and February, when the reserves sat at $3.5 billion, according to the Bank of Uganda. Rona Nahabwe, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now, elsewhere, government through Labour and Gender Ministry has embarked on providing startup capital to women through different programs such as the UWEP and SAGE. The Prime Minister, Robin Anabanja, has still urged stakeholders and NGOs to support women in business and develop the agenda on socio-economic transformation. Samuel Kirimunda reports.
The Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development has organized a Women Leaders Conference with an aim to empower women economically in order to benefit from their programs like the Uganda Women Entrepreneur Program, special grants for the elderly and social assistance grants for empowerment. Prime Minister Right Honorable Robin Anabanja said that Uganda has 48% women leaders who are transforming the country and benchmarking women's economic agenda to improve the lives of women.
Has implemented several programs such as Operation Wealth Creation, as you are aware, the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, WEP, the Youth Livelihood Program, and the Social Assistance Grant for the elderly. the grant for people with disabilities, and now the Paris Enrollment Model and the GROW project. You know GROW. Hope she told you everything. Which aims to support women entrepreneurs access credit and services to grow their businesses or enterprises, among others. These initiatives have enabled millions of women in Uganda to participate in this economy.
According to Grace Caballo, Secretary General of the Pan-African Women Organization, women are having a difficult time getting along with another, which is preventing some of them from achieving success and making it difficult for the government to mobilize programs, particularly for those that only focused on women.
That the infights, the pull-down syndrome is destroying the women's struggle. I have witnessed it. I've engaged with some of you. You know I've come face to face with you, and I never mince with words. Truth must come out if we are to solve these problems. We cannot really blame the men or any other person who fights us when we're busy fighting ourselves.
Speaking to women leaders, they suggested that government should promote these programs on local radio stations so all women would be aware of them. Additionally, they requested additional funding from the government so that they can start their own businesses and better their standard of living.
For supporting women to give them startup capital. However, women economic empowerment has not trickled down to the last woman. The information is not well captured. I want to suggest that if possible, we can put these programs on local radios using the local languages to target the local.
In Uganda, women have been favored in terms of access to government programs. For instance, programs like UWEP is intended to empower Ugandan women for economic development. However, conflict among women has hindered them from benefiting from the government-related programs. Andrew Bareje, Samuel Chirimunda, Smart 24, Business Today.
Well, now moving on, dominance of health insurance is an overjoy to the sector proprietors, but it portrays impressions of the markets after occasion mentality. Currently, demand for the product has been extended to persons with disability in a chain where health insurance premiums are further shifting from homes to independent health insurance companies. Naomi Mutumba reports.
A study conducted by Disability Rights Advocates Association revealed that nearly 40% of respondents with disabilities encountered significant barriers in securing adequate insurance, highlighting the need for improved accessibility. Despite growth in demand for the product, collecting over 62 billion in premiums, there is a big gap on inclusivity for PWDs.
When you talk about medical insurance, it's actually the policy or the class of insurance that has the most Ugandans, about 4% of our population. They used to be above 5%, but also because of the economic downturn, it has come down to about 4%. So if you look about 4% of the population, less than, how many people? 4 million, actually, that was the thing. Ugandans, imagine. No, that would be 10% actually. But
health insurance has become a pervasive force in modern healthcare, determining the accessibility and affordability of medical services for millions of individuals. While people with disability inclusion intends to provide financial protection and ensure access to quality healthcare, its all-encompassing influence has obscured the specific needs of marginalized communities, particularly persons with disabilities.
You don't blame insurance because the whole community, the whole world, they have a tendency, they have stigma, they feel that people with disability are unable, they can't get to their own feet and do things. They believe that they were a part of the people who believing that being disabled is an ability, which is wrong. You see, now we are happy that insurance, they have come back they have come out to see that, I think we should move with the people with disability.
With insurance, there are products which insurance is designing, but the products are not suitable for persons with disabilities. That's why we are crying as they come for marketing, but we are like, how about if you suit?
Disabilities, if they get insurance from different parties, they have a right to work and they involved in different businesses. I have experience in Ethiopia because if the community has good awareness about them and if they never ignore them and if they get insurance, they can be themselves, they can empower themselves and they can also involve in a business. So they have to the community has to get good awareness about these peoples because they should not be neglected and ignored by different organizations and by different government sectors.
The provision of a 10% incentive on chargeable income, as stated in the Income Tax Act, aimed to encourage integration of PWDs into formal employment. However, despite these provisions, the community sustained significant hurdles in securing meaningful employment, exacerbating struggle for inclusivity and economic empowerment.
When they try to employ, they don't have expertise in handling persons with disabilities. So there is a lot which must be done to put that in effective. We want to work together with the government, but our resources are tight. We don't have a house, we don't have an office, a home where we are operating from. But if the government can come out.
Addressing such market-pressing issues requires a comprehensive approach that prioritizes the inclusion and well-being of PWDs. Health insurance companies have been advised to take on innovation and develop policies that attend to the unique needs of this demographic.
There is opportunity there. This means that they are going to come. I think this surveying they are doing is going to help them to design some products that are accommodating people with disability, like they accommodate other products. Products, for example, product in business, product in schools, product in health, like that. So we believe this is a good start, which is going to lead the insurance to accommodate the people with disability.
As Uganda's health insurance industry continues to grow, innovation is still demanded for market growth and inclusivity. Naomi Mtumba, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now we head to the international scene as China's hunger for lithium takes a different stage. Zimbabwe's rich natural resources are once again in the spotlight. As China-owned Prospect Lithium, Zimbabwe opened up a $300 million lithium processing plant. Lithium remains a highly demanded metal in the work of charge for renewable energy and electric mobility segments that China has profound interest and dominance in. We have details.
Zimbabwe's dominant mineral reserves, among which is the global on-demand lithium, crucial for the sought-after transition to renewable energy, solar and EVs in particular, has drawn China's attention. Beijing, with its profound reputation in renewable energy products, has had a $300 million lithium processing plant installed by Chinese company Zhejiang. Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa assured citizens of the economic potential presented through international lithium trade.
Lithium is the mineral of the present and the future. Hence, its beneficiation and a value addition by Prospect Lithium Zimbabwe will position our country as an emerging and competitive player in the global lithium value chain.
The new plant opened by Zhejiang-owned Prospect Lithium, Zimbabwe will process 4.5 million metric tons of hard rock lithium into concrete for annual report for annual export. The global demand for lithium surged in recent years because of the growing demand in solar and electric automobile investment. As a result, Harare has drawn investors from Canada, United Kingdom, and Australia as China remains a dominant player.
All right, now as we're winding up with Business Today tonight, let's first have a recap of our top stories. In the headlines tonight, we look at leveraging free zones. The private sector braces to exploit special economic zones. And also, the Juba-Kampala trade standoff. South Sudan bans Uganda's inquest into crisis as 74 trucks remain impounded. Elsewhere, lessons from the Kenyan shilling crumbling. Kenyan shilling plummets as Uganda's free-floating currency scales. Many thanks for being part of Business Today, wherever you've been catching us from. I'm Joram Ssonko with Winnie Wins and Akochi for the sign language interpretation. We wish you all the best for the evening and a blessed weekend. But on Sunday, keep it smart 24 television because we shall be giving you a rewind of your top weekly stories from Business Today in the business edition with Pedison Mumbere. That is at 8 p.m. off to 9 o'clock on Sunday night. For now, it's a good evening and a good night.